Before beginning any maintenance procedure on an A8197 Air Eliminator, always make sure that all internal pressure has been relieved to zero pressure. We strongly recommend that you review the Mechanical Air and Vapor Eliminator's Installation and Parts Manual number M300-10 for all warnings and information on this product. The manual can be found at lcmeter.com under Publications. The tools required for disassembly and assembly are a ratchet wrench with a 1/2" and 1/4" socket, a flat blade screwdriver, needle nose pliers, an adjustable wrench, and plenty of clean shop towels. For ease of instruction in this video, the air eliminator has been removed from the connecting piping and strainer assembly body. The most common indication of air eliminator failure is leakage in and around the cover and valve plate area. Common causes are damaged cover O-rings, valve plate wear, broken or bent reed strips, or a punctured float filled with product. Note the nameplate on the housing for information regarding the model, serial number, and date of manufacture for the unit you are working on. Begin disassembly by removing the 4 screws and washers at the base of the air eliminator that secures it to the strainer assembly. In this example, the 4 screws and washers have already been removed. Pull the air eliminator off the strainer and remove the baffle cup from the housing. Remove the valve plate covers by using a ratchet with a 1/2" socket to remove the 6 bolts that secure the covers on both sides of the housing. Loosen in a cross pattern to limit the stress on the valve plate covers. Check that the mating surfaces on the housing are smooth and clean. Inspect the cover seal rings to make sure they are not broken, kinked, or damaged in any way. Inspect the gasket side of both valve plates for damage. Note that the raised ridges which allow the reed to seal the port opening are not damaged and free of debris. The reed strips need to be detached from the housing before the float assembly can be removed. Keep gentle pressure on the reed while removing the screw with a flat blade screwdriver. Failure to do so could result in injury and is also the cause of many lost screws. Gently allow the reed strip to straighten after removing the screw. After both reed strips have been detached, slide the float with the attached reed strips out the bottom of the housing. Unless damaged or bent, the guide rod on which the float assembly slides does not need to be removed. If the guide rod needs to be replaced, loosen with adjustable wrench or a 1/4" socket as shown. Make sure the flat washer and O-ring mounted on the upper end of the rod are in place. These parts protect the float assembly from being damaged during the travel of the float when the air eliminator is filled with liquid. Reinstall the guide rod into the threaded hole inside the top of the housing and tighten with adjustable wrench or 1/4" socket. Make sure the flat washer and O-ring mounted on the upper end of the rod are in place. Reed strips that are bent or damaged in any way must be replaced. To replace reed strips, first remove the reed holder assembly from the float shaft. Using needle nose pliers, remove the lower retaining clip and the assembly will slide off the shaft. The upper retaining clip does not need to be removed unless damaged. To remove the reed strips from the reed holder assembly, squeeze the float stop, the long U-shaped clip, together. The reed holder, the short C-shaped clip, will release, allowing easy removal of the reed strips. Reed strips that are bent or damaged in any way must be replaced. Replace the reed strips by aligning the notch on the end of the reed strip with the small dog ear outside of the opened end of the float stop. The ends and sides of the reed strips are identical. With both reed strips in place, gently squeeze the float stop together and mount the reed holder clip with the slots mating with the dog ears on the float stop. The reed assembly is now secure and ready to install on the float shaft. Visually inspect the float for obvious damage. Gently shake the float. If it feels heavy or there appears to be fluid in the float, the entire float assembly must be replaced. Slide the reed assembly back onto the float shaft with the reed strips extending away from the float ball. Install the lower retaining clip that was removed earlier by snapping it into the groove on the float shaft. Begin reassembly by sliding the float and reed assembly onto the guide rod in the cavity at the bottom of the housing. The reed strips are inserted first, followed by the float. As you slide the float assembly up the rod, the reeds will appear in the large rectangular slots on the upper portion of the body. Gently pull the reed strips out and through the slots as you slide the float assembly up the rod. Carefully bend the first reed strip, aligning it with the screw hole on the housing. Use the screw removed earlier to securely attach the reed strip to the housing. Repeat for the other reed strip. The valve plates and covers are the same on both sides of the housing. Insert the O-ring cover seal into the groove on the valve plate cover. Position the metal side of the valve plate against the valve cover, making sure the screw holes align. The gasket side of the valve plate faces the housing surface. Position the valve plate and cover on the housing, making sure the large pass-through holes on the valve plate align with the holes in the housing. Secure with the 6 cover screws removed earlier. These are self-tapping screws. To ensure alignment of the threads cut by the screw, turn each screw counterclockwise until you feel it drop into the thread. Then turn the screw in a clockwise direction until finger tight. Tighten all screws with a 1/2-inch socket in a crisscross pattern and torque to 17.5 to 20.5 foot-pounds. Repeat this procedure for the valve plate and cover on the other side of the housing. This completes the disassembly and assembly procedure of the A8197 Air Eliminator. The Air Eliminator assembly, along with its baffle, is ready to be reinstalled in your system. When reinstalling the Air Eliminator to the strainer assembly, first insert the baffle into the strainer assembly, then attach the Air Eliminator assembly. If you have any questions about the installation, operation, or maintenance of this product, please contact your local distributor. Dealer and Liquid Control's contact information can be found on our website at lcmeter.com.